School elections are probably one of the most common forms of democracy in the United States. So we have, I think, close to 10,000 school boards. Most of them are elected. And we wanted to see whether giving voters information about how students are doing affected their behavior in candidate elections and also their behavior in direct democracy elections over things like school bonds or school tax referenda. And so in that particular study, we used a measure that was introduced in 2001 by the federal government called adequate yearly progress that basically divided schools and school districts into two groups, kind of high achieving and low achieving / failing. So we found two important, I think, points. One was that this AYP measure that the federal government was using was actually really problematic in that it wasn't measuring the quality of the education. It was really measuring whether a school or a school district was serving a lot of poor or minority students. And second, even more problematically, we found that when you give voters this information, they don't react in a way that is positive. So if you tell voters that your school district is low achieving, they actually are less likely to pass tax increases to improve student achievement. So the law was motivated by this goal of closing the achievement gap between high and low achieving students, and we found through this electoral channel that it actually had the opposite effect. That schools and districts that were doing well got more resources, and schools and districts that were doing poorly actually got less resources because voters were less likely to approve new taxes. So it actually widened the achievement gap. It turns out that simply giving students a test and seeing how many of them pass or fail at the end of the year doesn't tell us very much about the quality of schools. You have to use really sophisticated kinds of methods to really back out what you want. And so we have some recommendations for how to go about measuring school quality. Looking at student growth over time is a much more valid measure of school quality than simply looking at student achievement at one point in time. The data that we collected on school referenda in Ohio actually gave us a really good test to see, does money matter in the classroom? Because we could find school districts where the school referenda barely passed with one vote, and we can find school districts where it barely failed with one vote. And once you got really close to that passage point, it was almost like a natural experiment. It was almost like a coin flip. It rained one day, and so 2 voters in a precinct stayed home. And so it gave us some analytical leverage on the question of, does money matter? And so we actually found that it does, that when a school tax referenda fails, spending goes down a little bit, not dramatically, but student achievement suffers. So students learn about a week less the following school year than they would in school districts where the referenda fails or where the referenda passes.